Hi, my name is Mr. Garino. I am a teacher at Harrison High School, home of the Blue Tide. I am making a web development tutorial for my students. And you can see the picture of our school there, our field, and our animated blue wave, which we see on lots of places, was actually made by a couple of students of mine. One did the artwork, one did the computer work. That was done probably somewhere around 2002, if I can remember correctly. Before getting into the tutorial, I would like to acknowledge some of the many resources I used to learn web development. Lynda.com. If you do not know of this website, check it out. The site contains a vast library of tutorials for all kinds of stuff. The videos are professionally made and so are really easy to follow. Although it is a paid site, you can usually sign up for a free limited time membership. TheNewBoston.com. The website no longer exists, but Bucky's videos are on YouTube. The tutorial videos are quite good, and there are videos for many subjects. TimothyTemplates.com. They sell templates, but they also have really good tutorials for developing your own website. HTMLdog.com. No videos, but they do have step-by-step instructions. CSS-tricks.com. No videos and no step-by-step instructions, but a really nice search feature for finding the CSS code you need. W3schools.com. No videos, but they do have step-by-step instructions. The really cool feature is their Try It editor that allows the user to see the result of their code with the click of a button. So basically in a little editor you type in some code, HTML, and then you click Try It, and it actually displays what your code would look like in a browser, on a website, on a web page. And so that's a really nice way to try out things and see if it's working, and then go and put it to use, obviously. So because of that, this tutorial basically follows the W3 Schools tutorials for HTML and CSS. So I would have to say out of all of them, right now, W3 Schools is the one I use the most. Throughout this tutorial, I will be working through this slideshow presentation. When a slide instructs you to do something, I will pause the presentation and then perform the task so you can follow along. Then I will continue the presentation. For ease of learning and simple organization, create a new folder with the name of your website. Since my students will be making a website about their animations and interests, it makes sense to name the folder your name website. For example, John will make a new folder named John Website, and Sally will make a new folder named Sally Website. We will see that web files cannot have spaces in their names, and although folder names can have spaces, I choose to eliminate spaces all the time when working with a website to avoid any confusion. So I just play it safe so I don't have to remember what things can and can't have spaces, just never use them and be safe. The folder you made is the place where all the files, web pages, pictures, videos, animations, etc. need to be stored so a browser can properly display all the files. So now, let's go see how to do that. So here's my slideshow. I'm actually going to move this over to the left side of my screen. So I have dual monitors, so I can't do the thing with the mouse to make it snap to the edge because it's going across to my other monitor. If you didn't know about this, you can drag things off and they snap to the edge, but when you have dual monitors, it actually goes to the other monitor. But there's a shortcut. You can hold down the Windows key and press the left arrow, and that works. It doesn't go to my other monitor, which I have these windows open on the other monitor. You can't really see them right now though. So this window, I'm going to go get and drag over. So here it is. So this is Windows Explorer. I'm going to click on Documents, which I actually am already there, and I'm using Windows 10, by the way. Go to my Home tab, click New Folder. Yes, you could right-click in the white space and choose New, and then choose Folder as well. The thing some people do that throws it off, though, is they right-click on something, and then the menu you get is different than New. So you have to be sure to click on the white space. And so I just like to go to the Home tab and click the New Folder button. That's not necessarily the right way, it's just my way. So I'm going to type MrG website. and hit enter. So that's the web page, that's the folder where I'm going to save all the files for my website. Now we'll go back to our presentation. So the next page, or the next slide, would be here. The three languages web developers use to make a website are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML to define the content of a web page, meaning what's on the page. CSS to specify the style of a web page, as in how the page looks. Background colors or a background picture to the whole website, you would use CSS for that. And then JavaScript to program the behavior of web pages, how the page functions. Don't at this time have plans to make a JavaScript tutorial because I'm making this basically for my class, and the class really centers around computer animation, and then we just throw in a couple of weeks of web development, so I don't really have time to go into JavaScript in this particular course. Current versions as of late 2018 are HTML5 and CSS3. The JavaScript version depends on the browser, but the standardized ECMAScript is at version 6. So there's an ECMAScript thing that goes with JavaScript, and it depends on the browser. I don't even want to get into it. Really, you basically need to know HTML5 and CSS3, and then it's just, most people just say JavaScript. On to the next slide. What is HTML? HTML is a markup language for describing web documents, web pages. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So that's where the HTML comes from. A markup language is a set of markup tags. HTML documents are described by HTML tags. Each HTML tag describes different document content. Together we will type the following into Notepad. So you don't have to type all this right now. I'm going to open Notepad and type it along with you. Okay, so let me exit my slideshow at this point and keep my slide open over there. And how do you open Notepad? Well, you go down to the Start button in Windows 10. You click that. You have to scroll down to Windows Accessories. They used to just call it Accessories. Now they call it Windows Accessories. So it used to be at the top and now it's on the bottom because of the difference between A and W in the alphabet. Windows Accessories, and then Notepad. And so here's Notepad. It's, I guess, the simplest text editor that you can have. And I'll make it somewhat bigger by dragging it off the screen and letting it snap halfway to the side, just like I did with the PowerPoint slideshow. But instead of using my mouse, I use the Windows key and the left arrow. So depends on your preference. You want to drag or you want to use the shortcut key, it's up to you. So now we're going to type. So I'm typing the less than sign, which some people call an opening angle bracket, and then the exclamation mark, and then doc type has to be all in caps. So doc type and then space, HTML is lowercase, and then the closing bracket. And then I hit enter, and then we do HTML. And we're just going to type this in first, but then I'm going to go and explain what all this stuff is. But let's get this in first so it's kind of, we know what we're doing, or we got something to talk about. So now the title tag. The title actually appears on the tab of the browser. So I'm just typing page title. Now the closing tag, the closing HTML tag, is the same as the opening but with a slash in front. Okay, so we opened the head and now we're going to close it. So now we put a slash with head. Information inside the head section does not appear on the web page. It's information for the browser, it tells it different things. And one thing you can tell it is what should we put on the tab of the browser. And in this case, it's going to be the two words page title. Okay, then comes, now that we've closed our head, then comes the body. Everything, body, forgot the Y. Everything within the, anything you want to appear on your web page needs to be in the body section. So now we're not going to close it yet because we're going to type this thing called H1. So here's our opening angle bracket. H1 stands for a heading. And so we're going to type my first heading. And then to close the H1 tag, we just same thing but with the slash in front. And then we're going to have a paragraph. So my first heading could say something like, welcome to my website, and then the paragraph could say, this website's going to be all about me. But for now, we'll just use some generic terminology. Oops, forgot to hit shift. And then we'll say my first paragraph, and then close the P tag, /P. And now to end our document, we have to close our body because we haven't done that yet. So /body. And then we have to close HTML. So /HTML. Oops. Sorry. Notice that the doc type HTML doesn't get closed. Okay, so there's no section of that. That's just telling the browser, hey, you're about to read an HTML document. So the doc type is an HTML document. And that's why there's no closing tag for that. So now we've typed this in. Let's continue our slideshow. I'll go to the next slide, and start off with that. We're going to save your file inside your website folder as index.html. Again, we're just reading through this now so you understand what we're going to do. Then I'm going to go and do it so you can follow along then. You don't have to do it right now. Be sure to use the HTML extension and set the encoding to UTF-8. Following these save instructions will ensure that your file will open in a browser. A browser is a program that displays web pages. Common browsers are Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer /Edge, and Safari. Like anybody using current stuff doesn't use Internet Explorer, but maybe your website's being viewed by someone who has a really old computer with Windows XP on it and Internet Explorer. So, it could still be used. Okay, and so this is going to be your Save As dialog box. Notice you're going to be saving it to your website folder. We're going to name it index.html, and we have to set this encoding to UTF-8. Very important. Okay, so let's go do that. Oh, it's asking me if I want to keep it. I don't want to keep the red marks. You already saw that, so discard. Okay, so we're going to go File, and let me switch down to this, or go back to this one. Okay, so this was the picture. We're going File, Save As. Going to go to Documents, double click on MrG website. You're going to click on your folder name, obviously. Over here you have to type index.html. And before clicking Save, you need to change this to UTF-8. And then you can click Save. Okay, now we'll go to the next slide and read that off. So we're going to explain the example. And you should be watching a video right now with your Notepad document next to you so you can look back and forth from the video to Notepad and see what I'm explaining. The doc type declaration defines the document type to be HTML. Kind of already said that. The text between the opening HTML tag and the closing HTML tag describes an HTML document. The text between the opening head tag and the closing head tag provides information about the document, like the page title, as we said, and other things. And we'll learn about those other things in subsequent videos. The text between the title tags provides a title for the document which appears on the Browser tab. The text between the body tags describes the visible page content. The text between the H tags describes a heading, and the text between the P tags describes a paragraph. HTML tags. HTML tags are keywords, tag names, surrounded by angle brackets. HTML tags normally come in pairs like P inside the angle brackets, and then the same angle brackets but /p. The first tag in a pair is the start tag. The second tag is the end tag. The end tag is written like the start tag but with the slash before the tag name. The start tag is often called the opening tag. I don't know if you've noticed, but I usually say opening tag. And the end tag is often called the closing tag, which is what I usually say as well. Tags are not case sensitive. So if you put the angle brackets, if you put a lowercase p inside the angle brackets, that's equal to, that's like this going to have the same function as a uppercase p inside the angle brackets. However, lowercase is the normal convention used by web developers. So that's what I always do, and that's what you should always do. Use lowercase unless explicitly said, like the doc type thing. So other than that, everything should be lowercase, which I love because I hate using uppercase. Web browsers. The purpose of a web browser, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge, Firefox, Safari, or whatever else, is to read HTML documents and display them. The browser does not display the HTML tags, but uses them to determine how to display the document. Double-click on your save file index.html. It should open in your default browser and look like the image below, like a web page. Okay, so let's exit this slideshow for a minute and go back to our folder, and you'll see it says index right here, and it's got the little Microsoft Edge symbol. And I actually purposely did that to show you that if I double click on it, it opens in Edge. And here we have our first web page, my first heading, my first paragraph, and up here it says page title. And I don't find anything wrong with Microsoft Edge, but I think Microsoft's problem is this. They had Internet Explorer and it didn't really do things right, and a lot of people didn't like it. And so they went to Chrome or they went to Firefox. And now Microsoft comes out with Edge, which is actually pretty good, but everyone's already using something else and they don't want to change. So they're kind of stuck there. I don't know how that'll pan out, but I think most people use Chrome. So if you want to change to Google Chrome, all you have to do, meaning when you double click on this file that it opens in Google Chrome, you right click on it and you go to open with, and you could choose Google Chrome right here, and I'll do that actually. And I got my Chrome open on the other monitor, so let me drag that open. So it opened in Google Chrome. Okay? But it's still set to by default to open in Microsoft Edge, and you might not want to always right click open with Google Chrome. Okay? So if you want that to be your default browser, you right click, say open with, and instead of choosing it off the list, in fact it may not even be there for you if this is the first time you did this, you go to choose another app, and then here you choose Google Chrome. If it's not there, sometimes you can choose more apps and then you get a longer list. If it's still not there, you're going to have to ask for some help because it's the settings on your computer. But eventually, if you do see it there, just click on it one time to choose it, and then check this box. Always use this app to open HTML files. And I can't move this box, but anyway, you could see this over here. When it opens, you're going to see that icon change to a Chrome icon. And it opened again on my other monitor, which actually was good because it didn't get in the way. And you could actually, see that the icon changed. So from now on, double clicking on this opens it in Chrome, and there it goes again on my other monitor. Sorry about that. So here it is. If you wanted Firefox, right click, open with. If you just want to see it in Firefox one time, you can click here. If you want to change the default, that's when you go to the choose another app. If you want to edit this document again, well, double clicking on it is not going to open it in Notepad. So HTML documents are a little tricky in that regard. They can open two ways. They can open for editing or they can open for viewing. If you only want to view, just double click. If you want to edit, you have to right click. You can only have one default. I mean, that kind of goes with the word default. You can't have two defaults, then what's the default? So we're going to make the default the browser. So anytime you want to edit it, you do have to go the long way, open with, and then choose Notepad. And then you get your document back open for editing. Hope that's clear. Let's go on to the next slide. HTML links. I mean, what's an HTML document without some good old links on it? HTML links are defined with the A tag. The link's destination is specified in the href attribute. We'll learn more about attributes, but sometimes it helps to just get something going and then learn about it after you've already done it, even though you weren't sure exactly what you were doing. Attributes are used to provide additional information about HTML elements. Open your index.html file in Notepad. After the paragraph, but before the closing body tag, insert the following link. href, so A, opening angle bracket, A, space, href, and then the link to my actual website, Garinoland. Then you close the opening angle bracket. Let's use our little pen thing here. Okay, so here's our opening angle bracket. Then we type the A, href, the website with the quote marks. You need the HTTP colon. In fact, nowadays with the security, I could have put HTTPS, but I just noticed that, to be honest with you, from the last time I made this video. And then you need your closing angle bracket, but this is still all the opening, so this is all the opening tag. Then we have the text that appears on the web page. Whatever you say here is the text that you would click on. And then here's the closing A tag. Save your index.html file and then double click on it to open it in your default browser. It should now contain a working link to Garinoland. So let's go and do that. Go back one page. So this is what we're going to do. So before the closing tag, after the paragraph, but before the closing tag. So here's our paragraph. We're going to click over here and put our angle bracket A, href, forgot the F, I thought I hit it, equals, and then in quotes, http colon / www, you don't really need the W's, but what the heck, garinoland.com, close quotes. And if you ever look at code, sometimes where we're putting quotes lots of times are not absolutely necessary. New browsers don't have to have the quotes, or when new browsers look at your document, they'll know what you want done even without the quotes, but old browsers might not. So that's why it's good to kind of do it the formal way so that it works all over the place. So this is a link, and then after you say this is a link, you close your A tag, and then you save your file. And you actually don't have to close out Notepad. So let's move this around so you can see all this going on. So now when I double click on this and it opens up my other monitor, let me drag it over, and you see it says this is a link. And when I click on it, it goes to Garinoland, my real website. Pretty cool, eh? So that's how you make a link. Let me just minimize this so it stops going on my other monitor. So now let's continue our tutorial by going and talking about images. So HTML images. HTML images are defined with the image tag. The source file src, alternative text alt, and size, the width and the height, are provided as attributes. Save a picture of a dog that is 400 pixels wide and 300 pixels high to your website folder. We'll go do this in a second. Open your index.html file in Notepad. After the link to Garinoland, but before the closing body tag, insert the following code. So we have our opening image tag, and actually I shouldn't even say opening image, I shouldn't say opening image tag. We have our opening angle bracket. We have image source, dog.jpg. We got to go over that. It's inside our quote marks. There's our quote marks. Then we're going to say alt, dog pic, inside quote marks. Width is equal to 400 pixels. Height is equal to 300 pixels. And I'll explain all this as we go through it. Save your index .html file and then double click on it to open it in your default browser. It should now contain your dog picture. Okay, so this is the slide we're on. This is what we're going to do. So first thing we have to do, we have to go find the dog picture, right? Because it's got to be 400 pixels by 300 pixels. So let's go to Google and type in dog pic. And so we go to images, and you can see here's all pictures of dogs. Now, they could be really big. If you hover over it, this one's 1900 by 1900. That's a lot of pixels. You could use it, and it'll work, and it'll be 400 by 300 if that's the attribute you use. However, the browser has to download a picture that's 1900 by 1900. And if someone's on a phone, over broadband, slow Wi-Fi or whatever, it takes forever for that picture to download, and it doesn't need to because you're not looking for that big of a picture. In fact, on a phone, it probably wouldn't even be 400 by 300, be even less. So, you should have, look at this picture, a lot of pixels, okay? So, let's actually find a picture that is 400 by 300. If you did have a big picture and you knew you were going to use it on your website and it was only going to be 400 by 300, you need to go into Photoshop and resize it, because you don't want to use gigantic pictures and have your website go really slow because these gigantic picture files are being downloaded that are only going to show in this little tiny circle. So it would be crazy to do that. So let's find one that is 400 by 300 by clicking Tools, going to Size, and rather than small, medium, and large, let's just say exactly. We want 400 pixels, right? They even got pixels over here for you, by 300 pixels. And we say go. Now, when you search for things, you don't always get exactly what you want. So some of these may not be 400 by 300, but for the most part, they should be. And so, where's a nice picture of a doggy? I'm looking for the one I used when I made this video once before. I don't actually see it. It was, what the heck is that? But it was kind of similar to, it was kind of similar to this one over here. I don't think that's it. Anyway, I'll use this one. Chow Chow. Very bushy, hairy dog. Okay, so you don't want to save this. This may not be 400 by 300, so you always click on it. You don't want to save this. This may not even be the 400 by 300. You either click on this or you say visit. Now, sometimes it goes to a place where you can't even find the picture. Looks like I did. If you didn't, if it goes and wants you to pay to download or anything like that, go back and find another one. So here's the full-size picture. That looks a lot bigger than 400 by 300, so that's no good for me. I don't want that. Okay, so let's close this out and find a different one. Okay, you see what's happening? Again, that's way bigger than 400 by 300. Even though it says it here, I don't know why it does that. Okay, so let's go and click on another one. And I don't want to waste your time, so once I find one, I'm going to pause my video, find one, and then unpause the video. Because as I said, I don't want to waste your time. Oh, he's cute, ain't he? Okay, so I think I finally found one. This one over here. When I click on him, this opens up, I click here, this opens up, I click here, and I'm pretty sure this looks like it's about 400 by 300. In fact, they even named it Painting Dog 400, so that's probably their convention of knowing how big it is. And up here you can see 400 by 300, so I think I found one I want. So now I'm going to right click on it, and I'm in Chrome here. So sometimes Firefox and Edge might work a little different, but you're basically looking for, on a right click, anything that says you're going to save the image. Save image as. Okay, no copy paste. We got to save the image. We need the image in our folder so that we can get it when we want to display it on our page. So save image as. And by default, my Chrome goes to downloads. Most people's probably will. We don't want it there. We need to have this picture in our website folder. So we're going to click Documents. Go find our website folder, double click, and then click Save. Okay, so now I'm going to minimize this, and you'll see in my folder there's this painting dog /400. And for consistency, so everybody's doing the same thing, our code is going to be dog.jpg, which brings up something important. You can't just type the source as dog, as the name, because you need the extension. Right here, first of all, we don't have the name dog, but that's easy. We could rename that. We right click, we say rename, and we just call it dog. So now this picture file name is going to work in our code without me having to change my slideshow or you have to make any different types of revisions. Just you can do exactly what it says there. However, there's the .jpg. Well, if you look over here, it says it's a JPEG file, a JPG file, but you don't see the .jpg because by default, unless you've already changed this on your computer, by default, Windows does not show the extensions, but we can turn that on, and you need to do this. Make sure you do this. Go to View, click on that, and over here where it says File Name Extensions, check that. Now you'll see that your index file is actually an HTML file, and what we're working on now, the picture of the dog, is a .jpg file. If you saved one and it doesn't say JPG, most of them will be, but there's a chance it could be a different file type, like PNG or GIF. You can't click in here. I mean, you can click in here and change the file extension, but then it's not going to work right because it isn't a PNG. So you can change this extension, but that causes problems. So you don't really want to do that. You want to keep it whatever it is. If it says PNG, you have two choices. When you type in this code, you can change JPG to PNG. That'll work fine. Or if you want to do exactly what I'm doing to follow along precisely with the tutorial, go find another picture that is a JPG. Either way will work. Okay, so now this code we have to type in after the link to Garinoland, but before the closing body tag. So here's Garinoland. Click at the end, hit enter, and then type in that code. Opening angle bracket, IMG for image, SRC for source, equal to, and then in quotes, dog.jpg. And then our alt attribute, ALT equals, and whatever you say here is what would appear to someone who's using a screen reader, like a blind person who can't obviously see the picture, but when he goes by that picture, it'll say dog pic. If we want it to be a little bit more formal, we could say it's the picture of a chow chow dog, whatever, but we're keeping it simple here. We want the width to be 400 pixels, px for pixels, inside quotes, space, and then the height, and that's going to be 300 pixels. Oops, not 330, 300 px. And then we close our quotes, and then we use a closing angle bracket. Notice that there is no closing image tag. The image tag is just basically the opening image tag. There is no close to it because it doesn't contain any extra content, text or anything like that. All it is a tag to the image. So there's nothing in between the image and something else because it is just an image. So that's why there's no closing image tag. Okay, if we want to space these out, we could so you can see better. That's up to you. Okay, so now we're going to save it. And then if we double click on index, we should see the picture of our dog. And it's 400 by 300. Yippee. Okay, let's close that. And let's go on to our next slide. Okay, HTML elements. HTML documents are made up of HTML elements. Most HTML elements are written with a start tag and an end tag with the content in between. For example, look at the following line of HTML code. I know some of this stuff is a little repetitive, but we're learning this for the first time, so I'm going over it a little bit different ways more than once. So you got your P tags, my first paragraph. The P element defines a paragraph. It has a start tag, P, and an ending tag, /P. The element content is my first paragraph. You may have noticed that your dog picture is very close to the text for the link to Garinoland. You may have tried to put some space in your HTML code to separate these elements. However, white space in HTML code is ignored by the browser. To get some space between the Garino Land link and the dog picture, insert a line break using the empty element BR. It is empty because it contains no content. It simply inserts a line break. So let's go and do that. So what I'm trying to say there is, when I space these things out, if I space it out more, and I save it, and you double click this, okay, it looks the same. There's no more space. In fact, what's actually kind of weird, if I put a space between E and A, and I save this, and I double click on this, yeah, there's a space between E and A. However, and it just keeps opening, so let me close these other ones. Close this out too. We already got the dog, and I guess I'll leave that open so I don't have to, browser doesn't open back up again. What if I put in a bunch more spaces and save it, and then double click on it? It only puts one space. Okay, so browsers ignore white space. The only space they put in is the one space. You can't put 2, you can't put 4, you can't put 5. If I want the dog picture down further, or this link above it, or just to give it some more room, I can't go over here in my notepad document. I don't know why I'm moving it up, because I don't like looking towards the bottom of the monitor. Anyway, all this space in here doesn't do anything. Okay, it's ignored by the browser. Browsers are a really cool program in that they kind of look at the way an HTML document is, and if things aren't right, they got to display something. So they kind of just figure it out, use a default thing, make it the way they think it should be. Computer programs usually, if you don't have the code right, it doesn't work. But browsers are rather forgiving. Okay, so blank white space because you hit a bunch of enters by mistake, doesn't matter. It all goes by the tags. So if we want if we want some space between this Garino Land link and the dog picture, we go in here and we put in a BR tag. It has no closing tag because all it does is insert a line break. So there's nothing to it. So there's no content to it. It just breaks a line to give you space, because the white space that you put in your HTML document, the browser ignores. So we got to tell it somehow, hey, put some more space in here, and that's the BR tag. So we save that, and we double click on index, and now you can see it pushed the dog picture down. In fact, if we go over here, and I hate to type, so if you can, copy paste works. Control C to copy, Control V to paste, put in 2 more, file save, double click, and he moves down some more. Okay, so if you want space, you got to put in BR tags. Okay, so let's continue with our video. Well, with my slideshow. So here's the slide we just looked at. Next slide. HTML attributes. Attributes provide additional information about HTML elements. Attributes are always specified in the start tag. The lang attribute. The document language can be declared in the HTML tag using the lang attribute. Declaring a language is important for accessibility applications, screen readers, and search engines. Open your index.html file in Notepad and change the HTML tag to HTML lang equals en-us. The first 2 letters specify the language, as in en stands for English. If there is a dialect, use 2 more letters, as in US. So, English is basically English, but I mean, if you go to England and you talk to people over there, it don't sound like the English we use in America. So when we say English, we're saying, hey, the type of English people in the US speak. So there's other types of, after you do en, you can have other 2-digit things other than US, and other languages as well with their different dialects. Okay, but for us here in America, we're putting en-us. So let's go and do that. So over here in our HTML tag, the opening tag, we're going to put lang equals, in quotes, en equals, and then caps, US, and then close the quotes. Now, you're not going to see anything on the website that we've done that, but it just helps the browser to interpret what you're doing. So we're going to save that. And then go to the next slide. More HTML attributes. The title attribute. The title attribute can give a title to an element, sort of like the title tag in the head element gives a title to your web page. When you move the mouse over an element with the title attribute, the title will be displayed as a tooltip. Open your index.html file in Notepad and change the p tag to the opening p tag, but inside there put title equals blue tide. Alright, so we're going to go over here, and where it says p, right over here, we're going to put title equals, and then in quotes, blue tide. Close the quotes, and the closing angle brackets are already there for our opening tag. File save, and then double click on this. Now, it doesn't look like it did anything because it's a tooltip, so you have to actually hover over it and you see blue tide. Okay, so that's a tooltip. So you can do that. It's a cutesy little thing. Not a major thing, but just something I thought I'd show you. That's an attribute. And then we'll go to our next slide. Then we'll go to our next slide. Here we go. Another attribute, the href attribute. Okay, so you probably noticed that we already used the href attribute in our A tag linked to Garinaland. Open your index.html file in Notepad and you'll see that the link address is specified by the href attribute. Oops. So let's go and do that. So here's our A tag and our href attribute. And then our next slide. The size attributes. HTML images are defined with the image tag. The file name of the source image, src, and the size of the image, width and height, are all provided as attributes. The image size is specified in pixels. Width equals 400 px means 400 screen pixels wide. Pixels are the little dots of light that make up your monitor. A typical monitor is 1920 pixels across and 1080 pixels down. That's where you get the 1080p TV from. It means 1080 pixels going down. You probably noticed that we already used the size attributes in our image tag for the dog picture in our index.html file. Although size attributes are not absolutely required, they allow the browser to properly format the page while the image downloads so that the page does not jump around. So rather than having to download the whole picture, find out its size, and then put it in there with all the text, when you tell it the width and the height, it already knows where the picture is going to go and how to make it fit, so it can format the page and show it to you properly on whatever screen size you're using while the image downloads and then appears. If you've ever been on your cell phone and you're looking at something, all of a sudden the text scrolls up, it scrolls down, you haven't even touched anything, that's because it's trying to fit in a picture that it didn't know the size of, because maybe the people who made the website didn't use the proper width and height attributes. The alt attribute, we use that too. The alt attribute specifies an alternative text to be used when an HTML element cannot be displayed. The value of the attribute can be read by screen readers. This way, someone listening to a web page, that is, like a blind person, can hear the element. You probably noticed that we already used the alt attribute in our image tag for the dog picture in our index.html file. Some attribute conventions. Always use lowercase for attributes, since it is required by older versions of HTML. So hey, if you forget if you don't use lowercase and you're using the new version of HTML and your browser knows how to look at the new version of HTML, it's still going to work. But we should do things the right way. Always use quotes around attributes values since they are required by older versions of HTML. So when you make a website, you want everybody who goes there, you want it to work for everyone who goes there, not just people using the newest browser on the newest machine and all that kind of stuff. So they're quote marks. You're supposed to use them, so use them. Headings are defined with the H1 to H6 tags. Use HTML headings for headings only. Don't use headings just to make text big or to make it bold. And the reason for that is search engines use your headings to index the structure and content of your web pages. Users skim your pages by its headings. It is important to use headings to show the document structure. H1 headings should be main headings followed by H2 headings, then the less important H3 and so on. It goes up to H6. Open your index.html file after the paragraph but before the link to Garinoland. Insert H3, my less important heading. So let's go and do that. So where did I say to put it? Open your index file in the browser. No. Oh, that was the next line. I forgot to show you that. Anyway, after the paragraph but before the link to Garinoland. So over here, we're putting in H3, my less important heading. My less important heading. Yay! My less important heading. Close the H3 tag. Save. Always have to save before you go and double click to see it again, because if you don't save it, it's going to show you the older version. So save, double click, and you'll see it says my less important heading. So this is my heading 1. My less important heading, it's still bold, but it's not as big as this. But it's bigger than this because this is the paragraph. So the paragraph should have the smallest font, shouldn't be bold. And then the headings going from H1 to H6 should go down in size from as the numbers go up. So H1's the biggest, the boldest. H6 is the smallest and the least bold. You probably only use H1s, H2s, and H3s. Okay, so I forgot to show you the rest of the slide, so let me click through real quick. Boom, 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 boom. The last thing was open your index.html file in a browser and you will notice that the H3 heading is less pronounced than the H1 heading, which we just did. So, thank you for watching. The next video will be about CSS, which, as I said before, is the styling of your website. So this concludes my HTML video. Hopefully everything made sense and you get to make your first HTML document, meaning a web page. And of course my next video is going to be on CSS, and then we'll build some more pages and make an actual website. Thanks again for watching.